Hello and welcome back to the Delve podcast. Today's topic, we're talking about you are allowed to choose to continue doing what you're doing. What do we mean by that? I'm Allie. I'm a staff therapist here at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
And I'm Adam. I'm the executive and clinical director at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
Help us spread the word with this podcast, please. It'd be really helpful. We're really relying on word of mouth. So if you find value in this podcast, share with at least one other person that you think would also find value.
If I may, we've been talking a lot about like relationshipy, coupley fighting things lately. So if you've been fighting with your partner a lot, or your partner's been fighting with you a lot, just send in the podcast. We got so many little tidbits. I'm sure that won't activate either of you at all, but I don't know. I'm just saying.
I mean, it could be a little spicy to do that, but could be helpful in the end. It could be worth it. just slide over the podcast really slyly. Here, listen to this. Here at Delve Psych, we offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy. If you're interested in a free consultation call with one of our therapists, head on over to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And do check out our Substack at delvepsych.substack.com.
Woo.
Woo. So,
hey,
yeah.
This is our 50th episode.
The big 5-0? What?
Can you believe that?
Yes and no. I feel like we've been doing this for a minute. And I know we've had a lot of podcasts, but still 50 is,
when did we actually start? Like, when was our first record? Oh, I remember. It was last May, maybe June.
Okay. So yeah, we've been doing it for less than a year, but in a few months we'll be coming up on a year.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's just wild.
Crazy.
And yeah. I've really, one, sentiment. I want to say that I've really enjoyed doing this with you. And I appreciate the way that you've come into this space as both just a brilliant intellectual, but also as just a charismatic person. So this has been great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that compliment. I will receive it. No, I started this podcast as like a little baby, like, I was like freshly graduated.
Right.
And yeah, I feel like there's still so much for me to learn and grow on, of course, always. But like, especially back then, I was like, okay, can I sit and talk about like psychology things for half an hour, 45 minutes? Can I do that? Sure. Yeah.
Turns out you're just fine. Actually, I mean, I really think that you do such a nice job. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep throwing compliments your way. I think you do such a nice job of playing at the high intellectual level that I sometimes go to, but also really representing like a very common sense layperson's view as well. I've received the feedback about your role in all of this as you do such a nice job of kind of distilling, but you also do such a nice job of saying the thing that the listener is thinking. And so I think that's it's kind of a big skill to be able to do both things.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do try to make an effort to be like, okay, what would layperson listeners be thinking right now? In reaction to what Adam is saying.
Yeah, which is incredibly helpful because I could just get super academic and it's we need that kind of transition from brain land to like humanity. It's helpful.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I think we need, obviously we need your depth and wealth of knowledge and everything you have to say in this. I mean, we've had 50 podcasts worth of juicy, interesting topics, and we still have so much more that we can say. I know for sure you have so much more that you can say. So
gotta love the hyperverbalizations of a white man.
But you're also just very knowledgeable about a lot of things, and like I'm just gonna throw some compliments back to you now.
No, let's skip that part.
Why not? I like to reciprocate. Like just, having you as my supervisor and still having you as my supervisor, like just I'm really grateful that I've been able to like work with someone who has such a wealth of knowledge and is willing to like teach and invest in the people that you're mentoring. And I'm just glad that like a wider audience can like hear what's going on in your brain parts more. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I try very hard with, I love teaching and I love supervising, and I don't feel like I do it because I want some accolade per se. It's weird to be kind of like trying to be public facing, but not actually care that much about fame or whatever else. That's why we have that in our intro. I just think that there's a better way to do it, and that's what I want to try to get out there. And and I care a lot about making the experience for the people that I'm teaching, whether it's a client, whether it's a podcast audience listener person, or whether it's a supervisee, just making that a good experience. There's so much that is happening in the world, that's happening in the academic spaces, that just makes getting through a graduate program difficult, getting through life difficult. And so if there's some way that as a boss or communicator or therapist, I could be at least a little helpful. I mean, that's the aim. That's the
yeah,
aim.
yeah. Yeah, and I've heard feedback from people in my circle that they found this podcast to be helpful and they've gleaned certain things from it. And I've heard like certain friends in my circle like say things that like you've said it on the podcast, like, oh, remember when Adam was, says that, and I'm like,
No
whoa,
way. That's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, I think it's been a crazy journey, and I'm really excited. When you first had like this idea of a podcast, I got really excited because of my background in like in the entertainment space, and so it's been great to be able to like kind of like go back to like my roots a little bit with
yeah.
something like this, but in like a whole new way with like my new career as a therapist. And so it's been actually pretty fulfilling in that sense. So
Yeah, yeah. Same for me. I did not have the acting background, but I've long wanted to get the ideas out of my head. I was actually talking to a friend last night about the podcast because I knew we were coming up on episode 50. And I just said, for so long, so many of these ideas were kind of stuck in here, and I could give them to a few students here or there, but it was kind of just stuck in here. And even if not a ton of people are listening, who cares? That's fine. It's just it feels very freeing for it to be out, for it to be out of my system. And I had occasion to go back and listen to one of them. I think I was looking for it for somebody, and I listened to an earlier version of me trying to explain something that now I've explained to clients and supervisees a lot, that now I have a deep understanding of. And I thought back then I was saying the same thing, but I listened to that guy and he didn't know what he's talking about yet. He was still working on it. And that's so trippy to go back and listen to past self actively trying to construct an idea.
yeah.
That now feels so clear.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah. You're still sort of trying to like flesh out that idea. And I think through this podcast, we've both been able to like talk through, dissect, like even challenge some of our ideas that we have, to and thus making them stronger at the end and being able to like present those more fully formed ideas then to our clients. So I think this has just been a great space to like become more confident in the ideas that we are presenting in session with clients. So
wasn't that gosh, maybe I'm misremembering my history here, but I think that was the history of dialogue, and it, like, was it the ancient Greeks, I think, would often present arguments in dialogue form as a means of kind of building the argument itself. It's as if a conversation between two people is the way to build an idea.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, because I often do play devil's advocate, and so I think that it's a good way to be like, okay, how much does Adam really stand firm in this idea?
That's great. That's great. And what's funny about that too is I am always the devil's advocate in my groups. And so now to be subjected to excellent devil's advocacy. Nicely done.
Thank you. All right. So today you are allowed to choose to continue doing what you're doing. Yeah. What sparked the idea for this topic today, Adam?
Yeah, so one of our 8 domains is the psychodynamic realm. The psychodynamic psychotherapy is all about, well, stated in the simplest form, then I'll add some depth, then I'll add some depth. So in the simplest form, it's basically how does my history affect the way that I engage in the present context?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back to the beginning of psychotherapy, Freudian's approaches to psychotherapy were a kind of psychosexual approach, which was a an offshoot of Victorian society and purity and what they actually cared about, and religiosity and religious purity was far more important to that society. So they tended to frame things in terms of the kind of morals of the day, the expectations of the day. So you end up having a theory that's trying to deal with the problem of sexual deviance. It's just like that's what they're focused on. Americans in 2026 are focused on productivity, so you get cognitive behavioral therapy that's trying to figure out how to help someone function at work, codified in the DSM-5. It'll talk about distress and dysfunction, and dysfunction is partially defined by work. So you can see the mentality of the society reflects the psychotherapy it creates. It's a Brian Cushman argument. So we started with psychosexual theories that kind of turned into neo-Freudian approaches, which were sort of psychosexual, but also kind of got into this psychoanalytic world. Kind of the psychosexual theories were psychoanalytic. Kind of the later psychodynamic theories were kind of psychoanalytic. It gets very deep. It's very complex. There's a whole world of therapists who know this stuff way, way, way better than I do. And they're training institutes that spend a lot of time and energy and effort doing the same kind of depth work that we do across multiple domains. They do it just within psychoanalytic approaches. So anyway, what I find is that with a psychodynamic mentality, what we often forget is that just understanding our history doesn't mean that we have to change the way that we're engaging with our present moment. And the idea can be, there's this idea of an agent of change. Why does a particular psychotherapy work? Why does a particular thing help me change? That's what we would call the agent of change. And the agent of change for psychodynamic approaches is insight. It's noticing. It's becoming aware of something that was previously less aware, less conscious, maybe unconscious, if you will, debatable. But so insight alone is the change agent.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean behavior change. So you can decouple those two things. So you could have, I'll give you an example so that we have something real to play with. You could have tended to avoid talking about your emotions in childhood because no one in your family ever really taught you to talk about emotions. Dad didn't talk about his emotions. Mom didn't talk about her emotions. Therefore, brother, sister never talked about their emotions. So now you're in the present moment and your romantic partner wants you to talk about your emotions. That doesn't automatically mean that because you've realized that that's a thing and because there's a context of pressure now that you must change. That's a decision to make.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I think like because in schooling they always talk about the agent of change for this psychodynamic approach is just the insight alone. Like by you being aware of where these behaviors or beliefs stem from, that in and of itself will uh produce change or whatever. But I think there is that step missing of like, you still get to decide whether you actually want to make that change or not. Just like how we say like emotions don't make the decisions for us. We do. Like we can feel really crappy and still decide I'm still going to this thing because it's important to me. I'm going to push through, you know. So in this context of like, okay, I'm aware that I don't tend to talk about my emotions, express my emotions because of this experience in my childhood. Do I want to do something about that or not?
Right, right. Now let's be aware that there might be consequences to not changing. There's also going to be consequences to changing. Very often what happens with psychodynamics is that we became highly optimized to our childhood context. We're very good at being a kid in the context that we were a kid. We're good at dealing with the family dynamics as best we can. They might be aggravating, but that doesn't mean that we're not actually kind of effectively managing them. People know what to expect of us. We're moving forward in our lives. Very often we've hyper optimized to the family context that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And then, especially in the West, we end up going to a very different context. It's kind of an American thing that, you know, mom lives in Ohio, but I moved to Albuquerque. And now I'm in a completely different context. Mom ain't even around, and I'm still reacting to her. I'm still having other people play her role. You can kind of see how that might be a bit of a residue of past situations that humans found themselves in. I needed to optimize to my context because that was always going to be my context or something pretty close to it. Now I can just fuck off to Albuquerque. And so that's it's a completely different context, and we're sort of struggling with our pre-existing conditions. That means we need to use our big ass brain to figure out, how do I deal with this new situation? And any degree of optimizing for the new situation, one, is going to be imperfect. Two, is going to drag me away from the things that were working about the old approach. And three, is going to come with new problems that I hadn't thought of yet.
Yeah. You know, and maybe not talking or expressing emotions as a child was, it worked for you back then. It helped you survive back then. It helped you feel safe as a kid back then. But now in the new context with this partner who loves you so much, that wants some emotional vulnerability from you to have a closer relationship with you, and you continuing to keep everything inside, maybe that strategy of not expressing your emotions doesn't work for this new context that you're in. It's not workable in this new context. It's actually hindering you from what you actually want. What do you actually want? Do you want a long-term healthy relationship with this person? Then you might need to start doing some things different.
Absolutely. And alternatively, you could stay the same. So how would that work? Perhaps your partner comes to you and says, I really want you to open up. I really want you to share your emotions. Why don't you share your emotions? Why don't you share your feelings? A healthy response. This is partially what I was trying to get at this.
Okay.
A healthy response can be, I understand why that's important to you. I can even potentially see the value of doing something like that. The way that I grew up makes that pretty uncomfortable. And I think if I explore for myself the way that I want to show up as an adult, I tend not to want to dig into emotions all the time. I just don't enjoy doing that. I know there's a benefit to it. I know why people like it. But there's also a benefit to the thing that I'm doing, and I really like my way of doing this on some level. So where does that put us? How's this for a compromise? If it becomes overwhelmingly apparent to you that it seems like there's something big happening for me emotionally that I'm not exploring and I'm not sharing and I'm not discussing, bring it up again. And in those isolated incidents, I'll eat it. I'll go. I'll do the thing. I'll explore and we'll talk. But my ask is, can we please make that rare? Because I don't like this.
Mm.
They can say yes or no.
Yeah, maybe some romantic partners would be fine with that, and maybe others not so much. And that's the risk you're willing to take if you decide to choose to not change.
Yeah. And there are consequences, right? Like that guy one day might start reacting emotionally. Let's say they get in trouble with their boss at work or something of that nature. The situation might be super salvageable. It could even be good for their career at the end of the day, but they're unaware of their emotions. They get reactive to the situation. They get anxious. They don't recognize that it's anxiety. They start to fight their boss a little bit, or they just like quit and walk out and kind of set their career back. And their partner's sitting there going like, "What, buddy?" But there's consequences. So you are allowed to choose to continue doing what you're doing, but there are going to be consequences. There's going to be consequences either way, though. They're just different.
Yeah, I guess it's just which consequences you're willing to deal with.
And you don't know, right? Like it's a risk. So I don't know what consequences are going to come. I could be fine, either direction.
Yeah. And I don't know, I guess there's part of me that's just like, okay, but the person that doesn't share their emotions and like decides, no, I'm not going to change, is like, are they just making that choice? They're allowed to make that choice, but are they just making that choice out of fear, out of discomfort? And like, is that really how we should be making decisions? Should we be making decisions out of like, well, I don't want to feel the discomfort of trying something different, or I'm too afraid, so I'm just going to make just choices out of fear.
All right, let's play with this. So let's say, yes, they are making the decision out of fear, and no, they shouldn't do that.
It's still their choice.
Yeah, that's still where we're at.
But I think that's part of like, when we talk about like the ethics of like being a counselor, being a therapist, it's like this idea of like autonomy of the client, and like they have their own, at the end of the day, like it's them making their own decisions. It's not us being like, you must do this.
Yeah.
So, which can be hard, right? When we see choices being made.
Right. I once, I think I can make this vague enough that it's okay to talk about, but I once was testing a guy when I did testing. I hate testing. I'm not a big fan of testing. But I understand its merits. I'm just not very good at it, and I don't like doing it. But I was testing this guy, and in the middle of the testing, seemingly out of nowhere, maybe I just missed the earlier cues, I don't know. But seemingly out of nowhere, I asked him a question that was just a normal question that I ask all the people that I ever test. Might have even been on one of the intelligence tests or something like that. He just long paused and he just goes, "Nope." Sorry, nope what? No, I'm not doing this. We're hours deep. There was a reason for the assessment, and
Wow.
he's just like, I'm out, dog. I'm done. You're still going to get charged for this. You're not going to get the answers that you were looking for. And like, I mean, I could try to convince here, but like, that was a pretty strong, clear indication of your mentality. Nope. And so like, but they still have a right to do that, and they still have a right. So I mean, it's their life, it's their future. They get to decide how they're going to engage it. And there is, to your point, a little bit of it. Like, so what are the ethics of a counselor in that moment trying to convince? What am I trying to convince for? Am I trying to convince them to keep testing so that I get paid? Well, that's not good. Am I trying to get them to keep testing because I don't want to get in trouble with my boss? That's a bad reason. Am I trying to keep them testing because I think it's good for them? Are you God? Like, back off.
Right. Exactly. Who's to say that like we get to decide what they should or shouldn't be doing,
Yeah.
and make them do anything?
or
uh,
even convince, coerce,
or
etc.
yeah, yes, because that feels, yeah, like what is our um angle there, like what you're just
Sure.
saying, like what is, like if we're trying to convince, like what's the benefit to us if we're doing that, like what are really we trying to get out of this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and is it really about the person, is it really about the person that you were testing? I don't know, maybe you saw the benefit in them actually completing this testing, um
They
but
disagree, and they're
they
allowed to.
disagree and they're allowed to.
So I think that this gets really interesting in what I try to do when I'm working with a client, and I am, because I'll argue with people, I'll disagree with them. I'm fine with that. I'm not really worried about it. But how do I make that kind of ethically appropriate? The understanding that I have to have is I need to have a deep, deep understanding of what they are trying to do in their life, why they are trying to do it,
Mm,
and that they have already chosen for sure that they do want to make that change in that particular way. So, situation one, the person says, I have a terrible relationship with my kids, but you know what? They're ungrateful, and they're never going to change. And so, to hell with them. And now they're in therapy to just deal with
mm,
their feelings about the fact that they're mad at their kids. If I try to tell that person to change their relationship with their kid, if I start going down the pathway of trying to convince them in some way that their perspective is incorrect, then I'm deciding on my own values what is correct for them. I
yeah.
think it's still fair game for me to notice what I notice. So if they say something that's more sympathetic to the kids, or if they say something that's more honest about the situation, then I think it's important for me to call that out. But I need to do that even if it defeats the thing that I would want, right? So if a person is improving their relationship with their kids, and then I hear them say something that sounds like, I don't know, like really bad behavior on the part of the kid, even if I personally, in terms of my own values, think that that relationship is important and they should pursue it, if I hear that other thing that's inconsistent with my value set, I still should be bringing that up.
Mm,
But once I know what it is that you want and need, and you've told me that you've agreed to it, and we're on the same page that that's what you're trying to do, now I'll fight your ass for that.
yes.
And a good example of that is I did have I've several times had a situation where I was working with somebody who was trying to improve their relationship with their kids, and the kids were angry, and the parent was defensive. Every time they got defensive, again, they've stated their goal is to improve their relationship with their kids. So
Yeah.
now every time they start getting defensive, especially in the company of their kids, because you bet your ass I got those kids to come into session, right? And tell them, what's your beef? What's your beef with this parent? Every time they got defensive, I fight the client. Knock it off with that defensiveness. Well, what do you mean?
Mhm.
You want to improve your relationship with your kids. Defensiveness will not help. I know that because I understand psychology, and defensiveness is not a way to get
No.
closer to anybody. So I'll fight your ass for you
Mhm.
based on your views.
Mhm.
That means if I'm going to hold that conviction when it works for my own kind of value set, then I need to hold that same conviction when they've set a value that's inconsistent with my value set. It's about them, not me.
Yeah.
I'll fight you for your values.
No, it's a great point. Yeah, if the client has explicitly stated this is a goal of mine, then we have the agency to be like, okay, when they're behaving in ways that are not in accordance with like the pursuit of that goal, then we can be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing that thing because
Yeah,
that's
knock it off.
you've told me that this is what you want. That's not going to bring you there.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the caveat to this whole thing. Like when the client has stated what they actually want, and then they're behaving in a way that is in direct opposite of that, of what they
Yeah.
want. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it works really well in therapy. One, because I don't mind being a little argumentative, but two, I don't lose clients because I'm arguing with them. And they're not generally very mad at me for arguing with them, because at the end of any one of those sessions, and I work with some men who engage in some pretty toxic behaviors, especially in their romantic relationships.
Yeah.
So at the end of, well, let me back up. How did they come into therapy? They don't want to lose this relationship. And
Yeah.
so then I can fight them. I'll like, fine, I will engage your toxicity so that that person doesn't have to. But then at the end of our big long fight, where we are actively just alpha manning at each other, I can say, you know why I'm fighting you, man? I'm fighting for the thing that you say you want. I'm
Exactly.
fighting because I think the things you're doing are unlikely to take you in the direction of the thing that you want. So we're at odds right now because I'm on your side so fiercely that I'm willing to kick your ass a little bit, to help you go in the direction that you're trying to. I always gets a good response.
Yeah. I think deep down they appreciate that.
Right.
That you're holding their feet to the fire. I think they do.
And
Yeah.
and a lot of the time, the fight that you'll get in that moment from a client is just them processing. It's like, how the hell is this my situation? Why is this what's happening right now? It doesn't feel fair. I don't want it to be this way. Okay, you give that voice. I'll give the reasonable voice. And then when I say, well, yeah, but what's a good example? Yeah, but they're worried that about whether you're going to be there for them. They're like, they shouldn't worry about that. We've been together for 9 years. So dialogue again.
Yeah.
You're processing. I'll play one side, you play the other. Fine.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed this topic. Great idea for a topic, Adam. You're allowed to choose to continue doing what you're doing. There may be consequences to that choice, but at the end of the day, you get to choose.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the quote on the board. Most relationships would be better if the other person would quit being an asshole. They've respectfully declined repeatedly.
Continuing in our trend of trying to get people to quit focusing on them. So much of what we'll hear in terms of like the problem in relationships is the other person's behavior. No, it isn't. What's the Jungian quote? Accept people as they are, put them where they belong.
Ooh, I actually have not heard that one, but I really like it.
Yeah.
So you're in a relationship and your partner has continued to be an asshole. You've tried to make asks of them. They've continued to be an asshole. So what are you going to do now?
Yeah, your choices. You're in this situation. Everything would be better if they would just change. They said no.
They're not changing. So what's your choice now?
Now what? Oh, what if I tell them to change more? What if I tell them to change harder? What if I tell them to change differently? What are you doing?
Yeah. You're allowed to keep making those asks, but at what point are you going to come to the terms that like, this is who they are? You've agreed to be in a relationship with this person. Do you want to continue to agree to be in a relationship with this person?
Got it.
Yeah. All right. I hope everyone enjoyed our podcast today. As always, if you're interested in our services, head on over to delvepsych.com, DELVEPSYCH.com for a free consultation call with one of our therapists. And head on over to delvepsych.substack.com to check out our blog. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.